Hello and welcome back. Before I go off, I'd like to thank everyone on here for helping me reach 1,000 subs. I just started this channel to talk about stuff I don't see being talked about much in War Thunder, and I'm so happy you guys have met me with full support. I also thank you guys who recognize me in game and take the time out to say hello. I'm really happy that you say hello to me and recognize me in game. Here's to a milestone. I hope to achieve more milestones in the future. So, for 1,000 sub special, here's the War Thunder Iceberg. The original concept was just small topics that weren't significant enough for a huge video, and I had to find a creative way to compile them into a video. So here we are with the iceberg. Let's get started. As a standard for most icebergs, I've arranged them on how obscure they are, with Tier 1 being the least obscure and Tier 7 being the most obscure. Also, if there's something I've missed, such as Tricolor Smoke or the Gepards on Curse, I really thought of them, but I've put too many, and as you can see, this video is an hour long, so yeah, if I've omitted some, I'd be happy to read them in the comments, or if you've experienced something that isn't in the iceberg, or you know, feel free to put them in the comments. Again, thank you for giving me 1,000 subs. And here's the War Thunder Iceberg. So let's start with Tier 1. JDAM refers to the GBU-38 guided bomb that was teased during the dev stream for groundbreaking for the F4 EJ Kai, but was removed in the final release due to the fact that a correction was raised in the forums pointing out that the F4 EJ carrying JDAMs in 2008 was only for an airshow display, and the EJ Kai couldn't guide the JDAMs. For most of the topics on here, I'd put the link to it in the description, but for some I would probably just put a picture or evidence that it actually existed. Helicopter PvE is the mode in development hell that Gaijin teased during Iqua Strike about a game mode that would be a substitute to grind helicopters in without being subject to KA-50s and helicopter enduring conflict. Everything about it other than the announcement has been hush-hush, and the only update we have is that it's in the work. This came to our attention when a moderator, I think it was Esmin, who said that this was in the works in a forum post about the upcoming update, but since then we've had no idea, so people have still been forcing themselves to grind through helicopter PvE. God help them. The Challenger 2 Black Knight is a modification of the Challenger 2 that adds commander thermal sights and active protection systems for the Challenger 2. It was found in a trailer that War Thunder posted for a Russian gaming magazine. Many of the leaks that turned out to be wrong always listed a Challenger 2 Black Knight as a coming vehicle because of this leak. However, it hasn't appeared in either data mines or in the live game itself. So one can only speculate when you will get the Challenger 2 Black Knight. Free Abrams is a small controversy turned meme in War Thunder that originated when Sean, the old War Thunder official streamer, stated that asking for free FP in parts is about the same as asking for a free M1 Abrams, to which the community jokingly responded by asking for the free Abrams. In response, Gaijin put out a free Abrams pack containing 13,337 Golden Eagles, 9 days, or as the bundle says, 13,337 minutes of premium, the real free Abrams title, and the XM1. The argument being the value of the Golden Eagles and 9 days of premium covered the cost of the pack, and the XM1 was just a freebie for purchasing the pack. So they got it off on a technicality that the XM1 is free because you're technically paying for the 13,337 Golden Eagles and 9 days of premium just for 60 bucks. So that's how they got it. That's how they say it's technically free, because the value of the pack makes the XM1 free. The AMX-32 stabilizer refers to the argument that the AMX-32 in War Thunder shouldn't have a stabilized gun, as documents posted on the forums point to the AMX-32 having the same toe-tack stabilization system as the third AMX-30B2 and AMX-30B2 Brennus, which is a gun sight stabilizer, not a mechanical gun stabilizer. So this was one of the controversies in adding the AMX-32. Gaijin went ahead and gave it a full stabilizer at 9.3, like the AMX-40. So it's, even though the documents say that it has the same toe-tack, so this discrepancy has not been fixed because the AMX-32 still has the stabilizer in the live server. Ghost shells and sparking. This one is a bit well known since it's a fairly popular phenomenon in game. Ghost shells refer to shells that are fired. The projectile isn't detected by the live server and thus just does no damage or any effect to the intended target. Sparking is the air battle version of this and is notorious, well, most obvious in the Hispano series of guns. That's why it's called the Hisparco. It's called sparking because the visual indicator of shells sparking on an aircraft are present, especially in the old visual effects, but they absolutely do no damage. It's claimed that the issue is mostly fixed now, and to their credit, I have not seen my aircraft spark recently, but there are still times where I get hit indicators but do no damage to the aircraft. So let's move on to hull break. Hull break is also one of those more popular mechanics to be implemented for War Thunder. The original iteration of hull break was just a certain ratio of shells to armor would cause a hull break. Rule of thumb was something like a 75mm shell would hull break a vehicle with 20mm of armor. Then, because this was overpowered, it was relegated to light tanks and SPA only, and relegated to only chemical rounds. But these didn't work properly, so now we have the current overpressure mechanic that we see today. Hull break is one of those things that was the most complicated mechanisms to be added in the game. That's why no one was really happy in any iteration was made. So, in my opinion, overpressure is the best that we can have for this kind of mechanic. Next one, we move on to AIM-9J for F4F. This refers to the argument that the F4F never used AIM-9Js and only used AIM-9Ls. However, the training manual for the F4F refers to the AIM-9J, and there are images of F4Fs in familiarization flights in the US carrying AIM-9Js. So yeah, this one's a bit of a weeaboo complaint that the F4F shouldn't have AIM-9Js. This was particularly a big complaint when the F4F early's devlog showed up for the event. People said, no, we can't have F4Fs with AIM-9Js because it only used AIM-9Ls, which is technically incorrect since they did have familiarization flights before delivery on the F4F where it used AIM-9Js. So let's move on to Challenger 2 and Leclerc leaks. This one's perhaps the most popular news to break out of the War Thunder bubble. The leaks refer to two different forum posters posting documents of the Challenger 2 and the Leclerc manual that were classified in order to correct the armor layout on the Challenger 2 and in the Leclerc's case to present a difference between the Leclerc S1 and S2. As standard practice, both posts were promptly deleted and moderators warned that posting classified documents is prohibited and will levy sanctions against those who do so. Which is a good idea. I mean, you wouldn't want your game in hot water. So, I'm not sure what happened to the two posters, but I don't think they were punished that much with bans, but I don't know. Panther 2, Coelian, Maus, and KT-105. Known as the German 4, these were the 4 vehicles that were removed as an effort to remove vehicles that didn't outright exist or didn't fit the meta. The Panther 2 was removed as the iteration in-game did not exist, and the real Panther 2 used a Panther G turret and only the hull was built. The Coelian's closest example was only a wooden mock-up of the turret on a Panther chassis. The KC-105 didn't exist as the gun itself wasn't even cleared by the WAP roof for mounting on the tank. as the gun itself wasn't accepted by the Heer into service. The mouse, however, while samples were built, were removed by Gaijin as, according to them, it did not fit the evolving meta of top tier, with tier 6 tanks using high penetration APFSDS and heat rounds, along with ATGM. The mouse still appears once a year to be researched by those who wish to have it. Now, let's move on to tier 2, less obscure topics. So, Comet Iron Duke. This was a one-off vehicle that was only available during the 2016 World War II Chronicles event as a reward. Essentially the same as the A34 Comet in the tech tree, but with a special decal from the 1RTR that landed on Normandy. Currently, it was only available through that event, but now it's available through Marketplace loot boxes, and you can buy it off the Gaijin Marketplace if you do so, if you want it. Or, you know, you want another Comet in your lineup. So, but this isn't. I don't think the Iron Duke was a premium tank. I think it's just a gift vehicle. So, not sure about that. Anyways, let's move on to Romanian premiums. The Romanian vehicles in game are few and far between, but they've existed in War Thunder for a fairly long time. These include the Romanian BF109G2 non-trop variant and the Romanian HS129B2 as a premium vehicle in the German tree. They were sold as a combined pack, wherein you can buy the Romanian Duck and Romanian G2 as a bundle. And when they were no longer available with the release of the Italian tree, new Romanian vehicles got added in the Italian tree, such as the IAR-81C. It's still there. You can still buy it for 1,000 GE. But probably the least known premium from Romania is the IAR-316B. This is essentially a SA-340 Gazelle, but instead of firing hot missiles, it was capable of firing the Malyutka, or also known as AT-3 Sagar, and S-5K rockets. The IAR-316B was eventually removed when the Eurocopter Tiger was added into the game. The M1A2 model, this one, I like this one. This one refers to the M1A2 model in game, wherein the vapor compressor unit on the turret muzzle of the M1A2 indicates that it's actually an M1A2 SEP variant, not baseline M1A2 that the armor layout suggests. So this one's just a bit of a discrepancy with the model and the armor. People who are on the forums argue that the M1A2 we have in game is the SEP and therefore should have 3rd generation armor. But when you check out the armor layout, it's just second generation depleted uranium arrangement. So I'm not sure if it's been rectified. But yeah, the M1A2 in game is a SEP. M1A2 SEP. Not SEP V3 or SEP V2, just M1A2 SEP. So, yeah. Fire and Forget UDES 33. This one was a small bug during the April Fool's event this year, wherein the UDES 33, the Swedish ATGM carrier, retained the Fire and Forget missiles of the 2077 tanks in the event. This implied that the UDES 33 was a platform they tested the mechanic on and just forgot to remove it when the update went live. This was a hilarious one because people who played the UDES 33 during the event cycle were able to fire and forget missiles in realistic battles, which of course was annoying to other players. And I think that mini oopsie was proof that we really shouldn't have the Pere missile carrier in game. I know I've said this before, but fire and forget missiles, pretty difficult. The Eurocopter Tiger UHT is already the bane of many tankers' existence, and you want to add a Pere missile carrier into that mix? I don't think so. Aircraft carrier, this one, refers to the highlights of new power, including the inclusion of USS Forrestal, HMS Ark Royal, and the Baku as actual in-game spawn points for aircraft in the RB. Sadly, they were promptly removed 2 updates later when War Thunder introduced surface-to-air missiles into the Red Skies update. So, this one, yeah, it was what a waste. You know, you can only see the Ark Royale in test drives and some custom battles, but now, because Air RB completely removed aircraft spawns, It was fun playing in Spain. If you didn't have anything, you could just bomb the Arc Royale. Um, yeah, I wish they do put back the carriers. They were really good implementations, and it's sad to give it up just for SAMs. Moving on, we have Polygon. It was a custom user mission for War Thunder where every tank in every tree could test out their ballistics on every other tank in game. It derived its name from the Russian version of the shooting range series on the War Thunder official channel called the Polygon. This game mode is considered the most comprehensive way to learn about your tank and how it performed against other tanks, as you could shoot every tank in game up to that point. When I say every tank, I mean every tank. It even included the April Fool's tanks with legs, the walker tanks. It was really good. I'm not sure why OP stopped updating it because yeah, the work was tedious. You had to update the data for each user mission every time there's a new update. So I think that's one of the contributing reasons why they stopped updating Polygon. So yeah, that's about it. Moving on to wind effects. Wind effects. War Thunder has actually crosswind. Did you know that? And effects coded, and its effects on aircraft were coded. However, they don't implement it in game. For those who wish to try it, custom missions can be coded to include and manipulate the wind to the desired levels to test out its effects in War Thunder. So, yeah, crosswind is not implemented in AirRB, but it is coded in the game's engine. You just don't turn it on. So if you want to manipulate wind effects and whatnot, you can draw up a custom game, a custom user mission, and activate wind effects. Hangar rocket. Back during the Space Day commemoration this year, the new hangar would have a rocket launch in the background. There was speculation that it's not merely a prop, but rather a test for ballistic missile physics in game. For what purpose a ballistic missile would serve in War Thunder, I have no idea. I'm really not also inclined to shoot down ballistic missiles as an objective in AirRB. So many better ways to play AirRB with good objectives aside from shooting down ballistic missiles. Anyways, the LA-174. The LA-174 is a special vehicle War Thunder, only grindable during the birthday of Semyon Lavochkin in 2014. And in 2017, it's a prototype of the LA-15 that was eventually accepted into service. There seemed to be no virtual difference, and the LA-174 was billed as a collector's item, rather than an alternative. So, if you really wanted to complete your USSR tree, the LA-174 is a must-have for collectors. It's the same as the LA-15 in so many ways, including the speed, engine, weaponry. It just has a really neat camouflage scheme, the prototype camouflage scheme. So for Volokholamsk is a former map in War Thunder whose larger variant, surroundings of Volokholamsk, proved to be a very unpopular map because of the size of the map and the tactics the map allowed. When the map voting was added, it competed with Vietnam as the lowest voted map in-game until it was eventually removed by Gaijin. So yes, surroundings of Volokholamsk was a really huge map with so many things to do, and it also allowed you to spawn camp vehicles if you've already taken over some of the points, because there's a high ridge point over there, over near A, and the C point. C point had a forest where you can just shoot into the spawn of either team. It didn't conduce gameplay. There was very little cover, and adding thermals just did not help it at all. So moving on, we got J4 and J5. This refers to the argument that there's no such thing as a J4, and MiG-17s in Chinese service are designated as J5. However, the logic of Gaijin is that the J5, like the premium Shenyang F5, uses the afterburning Wapen WP5 engine, and Soviet-built MiG-17s with the Klimov VK1 non-afterburning engines were not the same as the J5, and thus used the J4 designation. I mean, yeah, you've seen me talk about this in the aircraft that can already be added video. Just like to re-emphasize here that there's really no such thing as J4. Um, Although the ironic thing is that the J4 moniker was fed by the War Thunder Chinese dev team to the to Gaijin's world client dev team, so thus we have J4 in game. Horton Comic Sans. Horton Comic Sans is a funny spot in the cockpit of the view of the Horton Ho 229V1 that has Comic Sans cockpit markings. That's about it. Since Gaijin had very little to go with the Horton 229, which we'll go over later, we just made up the Horton's cockpit, and one of the outcomes is the Comic Sans writing on some of the labels in the cockpit. Challenger 2 or Challenger Mark II L15A5. This refers to the original stock round of the Challenger Mark II when it was added, the APDS shot L15A5. The main reason a lot of people dislike the Challenger Mark II is because its AP FSDS was locked behind Tier 3 like the Chieftain Mark X. Because of this, subsequent updates ensured that the Challenger Mark II got the shot L23L APFSDS stock and L23A1 as an upgrade, like the Challenger Mark III. So yeah, that was a bit of a pain grinding out the APFSDS for the Challenger when I got it for the first time. I mean, I love the Challenger series, but starting out with the same rounds as the Chieftain, it really didn't work out for me. Now we'll move on to Tier 3. Let's start with Helicopter Beta Test. This refers to the predecessor of Helicopter Enduring Conflict that was a more ground pound focus mode with more ground units to take out as opposed to the PvP focused Helicopter EC that we have now. So, I like the original one. I like the original Helicopter Beta Test because it felt more like Vietnam than what we have right now. You had more detailed AI units, and the SPA actually shot at you. On top of maybe some PvP elements with the Huey versus the high-end thing, but Helicopter Beta Test was seriously fun, and I only wish that goes back because the EC we have now is just a cluster. The RBT-5 is a reward tank given away during the Thunder League during the event of 2016. It's a prize vehicle as it was a BT-5 with two 250-kilogram rockets called the TT-250. The RBT-5 is perhaps one of the most coveted vehicles in War Thunder purely for its derp capability and fun gameplay experience. So this one, the RBT-5, is actually a really good vehicle. I've seen so many people play it and so many people have fun with it. Personally, I don't have it, but I really want one just to, you know, kick back, relax, and have fun with the RBT-5. Last Man Standing. This one. This was a mechanic added in 2016 where tanks with only one remaining crew member could stay alive and choose between driving the tank or firing it. It really caused great annoyance among the player base stemming from the players abusing a tactic to keep their last crew member in a spot impervious to enemy fire and then returning to the gunner seat to retaliate. It was removed very shortly after. This was one of the mechanics that I really didn't wish to go back because it was really annoying. Imagine a hull down tank whose gunner keeps switching to the driver's seat, and then every time you try to shoot the turret, nobody's there, and then when you try to repair or when you try to reload, you get shot. So, you know, it wasn't a conducive mechanic to gameplay. Next up, we have Saber New Boosters. This one refers to the advice given by many Saber players in-game to remove the new booster modification for any F-86A or F variant, as it was a cause of many wing rips caused by maneuvering in a Saber. There are talks of the same thing happening on the G91, but to a lesser extent. Yeah, this one's the cream of the crop advice when playing Air RB. If you have a Saber, remove new boosters or you will rip. Your turn is strong enough to keep up with the MiGs and whatnot, and you really don't need the new boosters. The Saber's flight model is really good without it, and you don't need to risk the rips for a slightly better turn. Next up, we have weather effects. Not only does War Thunder simulate wind, but in-game it already implemented. The ambient temperature of each map affects not only aircraft engines, but also the performance of tank rounds. While not explained in detail, it is said that ground ballistics are different in colder maps like Stalingrad or Frozen Pass, as opposed to maps like Tunisia or Sinai. Move on to the ersatz M10 and the TV. This refers to two variants that were given away as event vehicles at some point in War Thunder. The TV was a Panther A captured by the Soviets and was given away during Thunder League. It had the hull of the Panther A and the turret of the Panther A, but repainted an olive color. It also lacked the PZGR-40 APCR round of the Panther A. The ersatz M10 was given away during the 2017 winter event. It was a Panther G disguised to look like an M10 during Operation Griffin. It had extra armor plates of 3 to 7 millimeters thickness all around the turret and the hull. So yeah, these special Panthers. I remember some of the TVs going to sim and then getting a lot of kills because Germany players thought without any markings that they were allies, so they just got shot by Panthers, by unaware Panthers. It was, um in the end the TV was not added. Was removed from the lineup. Premium FPE, this one. Premium FPE refers to this attempt in War Thunder to have enhanced modules. You were to buy these module enhancements like they were boosters. So in game you would have faster repair and 3 FPE charges. This was the same. This was considered to be the same as the premium modules in wargaming videos, and it was very unpopular from the start, and they never implemented it in 1.79. They also tried to scrub every evidence of them trying to add it, but I have this good thing I have this forum post where the moderator copy pasted the entire dev blog, because the dev blog page on it was removed, so you know. The F4E model, this refers to the argument that the F4E in-game is not one specific block or model, but rather a mishmash of different blocks combined into one general design. This is evident by the F4E having CCRP despite not having the Tiseo, the little camera in the wing, which was a prerequisite for the digital modular avionics system that allowed the CCRP. The forum post about this is the main consensus is that the F4E in-game is closest but not exactly to a pre-block 48 F4E with agile eagle capability. This was actually one of the series I was thinking about starting in my channel. I wanted to call it Your Favorite Vehicle Was Added Wrong, and the F4E episode was specifically focused around how the F4E had so many things jammed onto it, but the model showed that it's not an F4E of this certain block or that certain block, and if we were to believe War Thunder, if we were to believe the model, it should not have these capabilities such as CCRP, AGM-65 and whatnot. But if you were to believe the capabilities, it should have a different model. So I was thinking of making that into a video, but I really can't find any other vehicles that had model versus capability issues, so I shelved it. Move on to the E100. The E100 is a German heavy tank that's part of the Entwicklung series of tanks. It was given out as a top reward for top 150 players of the Thunder League tournament, as well as the 5th and 6th anniversary tournaments. It's often paired with a mouse, as they often have similar characteristics. The E100 is known for its stupidly high price in the Gaijin market, with one E100 being sold for as high as 600 Gaijin coin. Speaking of rare vehicles, there's the M3 Lenin. The M3 Lenin is the nickname given to the M3 medium, the USS Archery, First given out as a reward vehicle for the 2016 Defenders Battle event, the subsequent Tankers Day events for 2016 and 2017. It's an M3 Lee with its Soviet green camouflage. This one, I got my M3 Lenin in, I think, 2016 or 2017 Tankers Day event where you had to tow a tank into the capture point, and if you won enough times, you'd be able to get the M3 Lee. So that's how I got it. I actually enjoyed using the M3 Lenin because I have a lineup of Fate premiums. These are premium vehicles that I got for free, such as the Matilda 76, the M3 Lenin, the BM13N. We'll talk about the BM13N later. T34, La Gigi, and whatnot. So, let's move on to Ruhr tests. This refers to the ARB map Ruhr being used as a field test for mechanics. In 2016-2017 was used to test mid-air rearms for bombers denoted by the bullseye markers in the sky. In 2018, it was used to test air spawn mechanics for aircraft, which is why Ruhr is now an air spawn map. Currently, it's being tested for ground vehicle reworks. If you notice, there are vehicles in the back of Ruhr that use ground battle damage models instead of the oversimplified damage models that other AI vehicles use in other maps. So yeah, if you noticed, there's a line of APC, SPAA, and whatnot in the rear of Ruhr, and when you shoot them, you get the hit cam, the ground RB hit cam, because their damage model is like the ones in ground RB. I think that's a step in the right direction. Makes the game more fun, and it doesn't give strike fighters a brainless task of just shooting down medium tanks, and rather they have to actually fight their tanks and use their weapons. But yeah, as I said, Ruhr has been their test bed for many aircraft mechanics. Bushes. This one refers to the iteration of bushes decoration in game. Before it was changed, you could buy for 500 golden eagles 5 pieces of a single bush. Before, they said it was a bit overpowered, so they rolled it back to 1 bush per purchase. However, those who bought into this were still able to use 5 of the same bush in 1 tank, which led to abuse. As you can see, there's so many tanks that are buried in bushes. Because a single bush could cover an entire visage of a tank that is as small as an M22. You see, I've seen so many M22s buried in bushes. You know, it's crazy. The M48's lamp. Okay, the M48 patent in the US tree used to mount a lamp similar to the lamp on the Leopard 1 in Type 74. Fortunately, only the M48 patent on the US tree lost its lamp for some reason. However, one would argue it was disruptive, but the same lamp is mounted on the M48A2C, slightly to the left of the barrel. So yeah, this one is a bit weird because the M48's lamp has been on and off. Sometimes it would disappear, sometimes it would show up again, and I don't know, the M48 currently the M48 doesn't have it, and I think it'll stay that way forever now. They've made up their mind on the M48's lamp. Old Kuban. Oh yeah, this one. Old Kuban refers to the original iteration of the ground map Kuban before it was reworked to what it is now. Major differences include the village near the sea point, which did not exist in the original iteration. Old Kuban is one of those maps that I actually enjoyed playing. I don't know why they reworked it. It wasn't that bad because it had a lot of crevices where you could hide from snipers, but yeah, I think the main issue with Old Kuban was that it had so many spots that modern vehicles could climb up to and just shoot from there, so the rework was necessary. Now we move on to Tier 4. The British tree D520. The D520 is now a regular tree in the French tree, but before it was added, the D520 existed in the Gaijin store as a bundle vehicle. Now the D520, the British tree, serves as a collectible for veterans. There are more French vehicles on this iceberg, but they're not in the French tree, so they occupy a lower part of the iceberg. Actually, I have a funny story about the D520. I actually intended to not have it. I just intended to give it away to my friend But Gaijin's gifting system was still terrible, so what happened was I thought you had to redeem the code that you had to give to your friend. So I redeemed the code and I ended up with the D520. So I still have the D520 in my British tree and I still play it from time to time. Great playing, I love it. New Guinea and Saipan. New Guinea and Saipan are now unused maps that were used for US versus Japan matches that involved asymmetric spawn for New Guinea, where the Allies used to take off from an airfield and Japan had an air spawn. For balance reasons, this map was the first to go. Saipan was also removed as it was important for the landing ships to be protected by the other team, otherwise it would not have an airfield to land aside from 4 carriers outside. The Pacific maps are very interesting. Guadalcanal, Wake Island, Midway, and Iwo Jima were very interesting maps, but with the advent of more powerful aircraft, they just lost their novelty and just became imbalanced. So, if there was any map that I could credit for being a good being a good teacher or something, it would be New Guinea. It taught Allied players to side climb. Every decent Allied player worth their salt always turned left when they took off New Guinea in order to give them more altitude. Even the P-38Gs, I think they had airfield spawn then, so they had to climb. Saipan, I had so many great dogfights over Saipan. I actually miss playing Saipan. Then we move on to the DM-33 nerf. This refers to the balancing tactic that Gaijin did when they added the Type 90 in Project X. Because his only round was a JM-33, which is equal to the DM-33, the highest penning round at the time, they shaved off 100mm from the actual pen values in order to keep it in pace with the weaker darts in game. So yeah, this one, the DM-33 nerf was weird because they just shaved off 100mm of pen from its original stats. They had the actual stats, they just shaved off 100mm from it. I'm not sure if this carried over or they already fixed it, but yeah, it was definitely a thing when Tier 7 tanks were new in the game. Leaked Japanese tree. This one, the leaked Japanese tree comes from this War Thunder promotional video called the War Thunder Bootcamp that showed a Japanese tree that included vehicles that still aren't added to the live server to this day. I assume that these vehicles weren't added yet because they really lacked the info on it. But yeah, it actually showed many vehicles that from World War II that were supposed to be in the Japanese tree but aren't yet. So, yep. Type 69-2A. Well, we have the Type 69-2G as a premium and the Type 69 in the tech tree. This refers to the third Chinese tank to be ever added into the international servers after the Type 62 and Type 65 anti-air. However, this tank is particularly special because it never made it onto the live game, even after the Chinese tree was finally added. In the Chinese server, however, it's a reward from a Chinese crafting event. That's right, the Chinese client invented crafting events in War Thunder. They were the first to implement crafting events, and it moved on to War Thunder eventually. So if you hate grinding crafting events, you have China to thank for that. KV-220. The KV-220 is perhaps the most formidable series of the KV tanks and the most desired due to the redesigned turret and 85mm gun. It was given out during the 2016 Operation Summer event and was the bane of the battle rating for a good portion of its existence. Its notable orangey-brown camo and its trolley turret did wonders for its armor. It's perhaps a Soviet tank that negated the weaknesses of contemporary Soviet tanks. It had good gun depression, good acceleration, and thick armor all around, and a crew of 6. Then we have the helicopter door gunners. This was a feature stuck in development hell. It's been in development since the start of helicopters. However, it stuck itself in this limbo. There's also no word to confirm as they stopped working on it, or it's still in the works, but it's up there without confirmation. I think this is one of the more trivial mechanics for helicopters. Yeah, it's fun, don't get me wrong, it's a fun idea, but it's just got no use. So a lot of these door gunners only use low caliber guns that couldn't pen vehicles. So, you know, it didn't serve a very useful purpose other than probably shooting down other helicopters when they get really, really close. Okay, then we have the tank beta tester vehicles. While the M4748 has been a thing recently, it's been a while since the A34 was sold as well, the last time being the 5th anniversary sale limited to 500 tanks. These two tanks are perhaps considered the rarest ground vehicles in War Thunder, although I expect this to show up again in the future as sale vehicles, thus dampening their rarity. So yeah, if you were a tester back when tanks were still in open beta, you could be bought into tanks by getting the M4748, which is just an M4A2 in the German tree, and the A34 was a T34 prototype. So yeah, the M4748 was sold again during the anniversary of German Unity, the 30th anniversary. I think it was in 2019 or 2020. But the A34 still hasn't been sold again since. World War II Chronicles. Before we had the Operation Summer and Winter task, we had World War II Chronicles. It was a set of special events revolving around historical battles of World War II in order to obtain the vehicles. You had to play the missions and actually win, do some kills and whatnot. However, when the game stopped being about World War II, it was eventually replaced by the tasks we have now for Operation Summer and Operation Winter. So yeah, if you ever wondered what we had before Operation Summer and Operation Winter, we had World War II Chronicles to grind out for vehicles. And we move on to the BM-13N. The BM-13N, known more colloquially as a Katyusha, is a rocket artillery piece that was given away as an event during the 2017 Victory Day event by destroying 5 vehicles with the BM-A-24 rocket artillery. It was recently made available again during the Hot Tracks trophy and is the only way to obtain the vehicle now. So yeah, I got my vehicle during the event. I got my Katyusha during the event, and I actually love playing it in custom battles with the friends, you know. Just drop your BM-13N to launch some rockets and just have fun. One of the guilty pleasures I have playing War Thunder. Now we move on to Tier 5. We start with 3rd anniversary titles. If you've ever wondered how some players have the title of Samurai, Eagle, Falcon, Knight, and Cowboy, these were titles made obtainable during the 3rd anniversary event for War Thunder. In order to obtain these, you'd have to reach Tier 5 aircraft for the 5 nations in-game at the time. Samurai was for Japan, Eagle was for Germany, Falcon for Russia, Knight for Britain, and Cowboy for the US. Obtaining all 5 titles presented you with a unique title that includes the in-game icons representing all 5 nations. Personally then, I only had the Eagle, Cowboy, and Knight. By 2015, I was only playing the US, where I had the F2H, Germany, where I got the Horton 229, and the British, where I still had the Meteor back at 8.0. There's my Tier 5 vehicles. It was a good time, you know. The Meteor wasn't that bad. D521 and DB7. These 2 French vehicles were present as early as the open beta. The DB7 was a premium British bomber similar to the A-20G in the US, but with the Mach 1937 machine guns in lieu of the 12.7s. However, the D521 was perhaps one of the rarest, only ever given in 2 occasions and never made available again through loot boxes. It was given in 2013 and in 2014 it was essentially a D520 with a more powerful Merlin engine. While I had the DB7, I wouldn't say no to the D521 if it ever came up again. The D521 had a really nice camo. It had invasion stripes with the special French camo. It's really great. IS-3 Triangle Death. At one point, the IS-3 was considered to be one of the most, if not the most powerful vehicle in the game. The Triangle of Death referred to this tiny spot around the turret ring in the driver's hatch that was the only way to penetrate the IS-3 with a King Tiger's 88mm gun. However, with the advent of HeatFS and APDS being accessible at BRs where the IS-3 can be faced, the Triangle of Death has lost its fame and notoriety. So yeah, back in War Thunder's early ages when it was still King Tigers and IS-3s, people taught you to shoot at the Triangle of Death for the IS-3 in order to pen it because it had a pike nose, it had a round turret. You couldn't pen anywhere from the front except that tiny spot. But now you got the M41 for Germany, you got the BMP1 and all that HeatFS, ATGM chucking thing, so you never need to shoot the Triangle of Death unless you get into a poor up tier, in which case just probably shoot the IS-3 there. Colored orbs. The colored orbs that people see sometimes in game while they play are graphical bugs that show up when the Daegor's engine lighting sources like volumetric lighting have problems in configuration, thus they show themselves in very contrasting colors, which looks like something on an LSD trip. Don't worry, your graphics card isn't dying, it's the Daegor engine's problem. I've had that problem persist as well. The volumetric lighting orbs beside the sun would show up, and the good thing the instances now have been very low, so I don't experience this problem anymore. So in which we move on to stock NPV. During the dev server for Night Vision, it was intended that top tier tanks had passive image intensifiers as stock. The green Night Vision we see on some tanks, and they only needed to research thermal sights. However, because only Russian tanks could have this, they decided to remove stock NVD and just allow the use of thermals for all vehicles. So yeah, back in the dev stream for Night Vision, the T80B and the T80U had stock thermals. You could use the Spotlight and the green Night Vision as stock. But when people complain about Russian bias, they decided to make the thermals and NVD in one module. So you had no passive image intensifier until you researched the NVD. And it was made moot when you had the thermals, because you never used thermals on you never use the passive image intensifiers on a tank with thermal sights. BR-412D for IS-2 1944. At one point between 2016 and 2017, the IS-2 1944 was used to cover a LAC in 6.7 in the USSR lineup. The way they went about this is giving the BR-412D a post-war 124mm shell found on the IS-3 and IS-4M to the IS-2 1944 and pushing it up to 6.7. However, this proved unpopular to the Germans, who complained that the ammunition followed the IS-2. It allowed the IS-2 to pen the Tiger II frontally, which the BR-412 and BR-412B could not do before. They shortly removed the BR-412D, put the IS-2 1944 back to 6.3, and reworked the BR-412 and 412B to allow it to pen Tiger's turret frontally. M24TL. The M24TL is the last of the Thunder League vehicles I featured on here. It's the most unique M24 to date, not because of the camouflage, but rather because it's the only M24 to acquire the T45 APCR round. It's unlikely that the M24TL will be offered ever again. Now we move on to probably one of my favorite entries here, My Waffenträger. My Waffenträger is the online handle of Son Un-e. I'm not very familiar with Korean names, who is best known as providing the bulk of the information pertaining to the Japanese Ground Forces Tree. She ran a comprehensive blog discussing Japanese World War II armor and worked with Gaijin to bring these vehicles into the game. She unfortunately went off the air on December 2018, detailing her health problems, and it's assumed that she passed away in the interim. Her blog is left to a friend named Kaz, and I gotta admit the news took me personally, as I corresponded with My Waffenträger a lot when I was a sappy young player curious about Japanese tanks. She'll be forever be remembered for her extensive work, and she might be the reason why Japanese vehicles are having a hard time being added into War Thunder. So, My Waffenträger, wherever you are, God bless. Godspeed. The F6F fuel tank. If you pay attention to the loading screens in War Thunder, the F6F Hellcat is seen to have an underbelly fuel tank. While this is just some creative art for the game, players who've had the F6F Hellcat early in the game's lifetime had seen that if you put it in the X-ray view, the F6F had the fuel tank model as part of it. So yeah, it's been the longest time since we saw the F6F's fuel tank, and I think it was removed subsequently, but in the end, we still don't have. So I hope we do have fuel tank soon. DMM Strike Witches collab. Shortly after the partnership of War Thunder and DMM, the Japanese company that publishes War Thunder in Japan, they successfully brokered a Strike Witches product tie-in to the game where special decals and special camo for the A5M was added. I was never able to access this because I don't have a DMM account, and so what I know is that there was only a DMM collab and you could have the camo in the game. Only if you had a DMM account. Now we have Tier 6. Infantry in Air RB. This one refers to the map Henan Province where there used to be infantry accompanying the tanks, which is the first known instance of infantry in War Thunder on its own instead of being in a landing ship or mounted on a vehicle. So yeah, you could actually shoot the infantry and they would actually dive and continue walking once you pass by. It's actually an interesting element. It's very unfortunate I didn't actually notice it when I was playing. And we move on to 20 tiers. Before the battle rating system was implemented, vehicles were separated across 20 tiers and the matchmaker ran similarly to the wargaming matchmaking system. The system was dropped and more vehicles were added. So yeah, before we had battle ratings, we just had the 20 tier system. It was the same, but instead of going up to 11.0, we just had 20, and we didn't have the point system, no point 3s, point 7s, and whatnot. So yeah, 20 tiers. Along with that, we had tier limits. Around the time the Panther was moved to tier 4, originally it was in tier 5, there existed a tier limit system wherein lineups always met vehicles one tier above or below regardless of their battle rating. It was removed in favor of faster queue time. So for example, if you had a 6.7 vehicle but it was tier 5 and you queued a match, you would only face tier 5 vehicles and tier 4 vehicles. You would never face tier 3. So I don't know, it was a thing because there are some tier 5 vehicles that you know, that were the same BR as tier 4 vehicles. Anyways, moving on. Panfilov's 28. Panfilov's 28 Man is a movie produced in Russia alongside Gaijin Entertainment. Gaijin provided a majority of the funding for the movie, tied in with War Thunder, to promote the movie with a decal and a player icon made available to those who played in 2015. I actually have this this personal player icon, but I wasn't able to get the decal. The Panfilov's 28 Man icon is probably one of the most treasured things I have in my account, so yeah. Flying tanks. This referred to a bug in War Thunder where an AI tanks and ground RB started floating in the air, leading to issues with cast aircraft either ramming the tanks or just simple hilarious moments. So yeah, there were memes before in the subreddit where you would see aircraft flying near flying tanks. It ranged wildly from AI BT-5s to Churchills. But yeah, if you recall, there were AI tanks in War Thunder in War Thunder Ground Forces. You had some Shermans, you had M3s and Panzer 3s and Carpathians. You had some Gepards and some SPAA in Kursk that would shoot at you if you got too close to the enemy spawn and whatnot. So some of them would fly in the air and you can see it. So we move on to World of Planes. World of Planes is the original name for War Thunder. It was switched to War Thunder in order to avoid any legal battle involving wargaming and its IP known as World of Warplanes. However, it's very interesting to consider what happened to World of Warplanes now. To move on to the Battle of Berlin event. In 2016, there was a PvE event called Victory Hour, where players would use Russian tanks and capture strategic objects in the Berlin map before attacking the Reichstag. The reward was a meager decal, but it provided so much fun and engagement that I actually really liked playing that game mode. It was PvE, it stormed the Reichstag, and it was fun, just straight up fun. Now we move on to the final tier, Tier 7. Start off with La GG3-23. So the La GG3-23 is perhaps the rarest vehicle in-game. It's never been offered as a reward, ever, and its existence is only known because of 4 people outside the dev team who were given the vehicle. Among the 4, one of them would be Oxy, the official War Thunder streamer, owns one of the 4 La GG3-23 aircraft and was only given the aircraft for obtaining and spading every vehicle in game. I actually know Oxy. We were in a Discord together, and I've actually seen him use the La GG3-23 in custom battles. War Thunder mobile app. War Thunder used to promote and maintain its own online app called the War Thunder Assistant, where it allowed players to view stats on the go, gamble for silver lions through the Officers Club, play War Thunder music through the radio, and use the app as a second map of sorts, as it allowed the mobile app to stream the map of the game the player was currently playing. So yeah, I actually used it for some point, but I don't see the War Thunder Assistant on the Play Store now, so I just assume that it's gone. So we move on to the War Thunder Bitcoin Miner. This refers to a 2017 post in the Steam forums asking about Gaijin Agent. In this post, OP alleges that the log files of Gaijin Agent talk about a line wherein a CPU miner is indicated. In the end, OP never got a clear response. As to the status of Gaijin Agent and the miner, Gaijin has not come out and addressed the issue. Move on to, there are no documents on the Horton. The Horton 229 is a lot of players' jet aircraft, and it's a little known fact that Gaijin did not have documents on the Horton. Rather, the plane is more of a mathematically simulated model rather than working on historical data. So yeah, my friend describes the Horton as some sort of magic on Gaijin's part. They just simulated a lot of its properties, and somehow it flies. So that's basically what the Horton is. Move on to War Conflict. Gaijin Entertainment used to promote this generic mobile strategy game on the Android and iOS. It wasn't developed by Gaijin, but Gaijin published it and marketed it to little to no success. I only know this because I played it for a good while in 2016 before giving up. It wasn't a really fun game. It's like Clash of Clans with War Thunder skins on it. That was about it. I didn't. I don't know why I kept playing War Conflict. Maybe I was just bored. But yeah, that was an actual thing. Back in the mobile game craze. So that was the War Thunder Iceberg. I didn't include all of it. I didn't include all of the things I had in mind because it would be really, really long. So yeah, I think this would be comprehensive enough just to throw some ideas your way. It was a 1K sub special, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys that I was able to make it here, and I really hope you continue with me on this journey. I still have a lot more videos to add, of course. I will not shut the fuck up until the MiG-29 gets added. That's gonna be something. So yeah. Thank you guys again. We'll continue with another how to implement really, really soon. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. This is the Dr. MD, returning to the base.